when you see what happened in Venezuela, it is a spectacular military operation. Maduro is out. Most people are not particularly shedding tears over that. If Trump were to leave it at that, would you consider that successful or not particularly?
No, I would say not particularly, because more than other leaders, the Venezuelan authoritarian regime does not revolve around Nicolás Maduro. If you took Putin out or Xi out, you'd have very different situations. But, he was just a front man for a broader, in a way, criminal conspiracy, and that conspiracy is still there. And so there's still going to be drug running, and there's still going to be human rights violations, and there's still going to be, support for Iran and China. So I don't think you've solved the problem at all. And then furthermore, if you really thought about domestic American interests, one of the most important ones is refugees. 8 million Venezuelans have left the country. A lot of them are in the United States, and a lot of these refugees that Donald Trump doesn't like actually would like to go home to Venezuela. And unless you create the conditions where they felt safe to do so, they're not gonna budge. So no, I don't think it's going to be a big success if they just leave at this point.
So what do they now need to do? Because clearly the conditions are not in place to have democratic elections tomorrow, and you couldn't get rid of the military overnight even if you wanted to. But if you were advising them, and I know that you've had a lot of contact with the Democratic opposition in Venezuela of late there at Stanford, what would you be saying?
In the short run, they don't have any choice but to work with Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, now the president,
Acting president, yeah.
Acting president, because they do need, stability in the short run. But with the blockade of oil that we are imposing on them, their economy is going to collapse. I mean, it's already in horrible shape, but they're not going to be able to feed their own people in a few short weeks, and that could lead to some very, very serious social instability. And let's not kid ourselves. This is a nation-building exercise. You're trying to refound a country, and you're trying to do it by remote control from Washington. But what's fundamental, and I think what we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, is legitimacy is important. You have to have a government, and then it has to be a government that people are willing to obey, whose laws, mean something to people. And that's the point at which, maybe even Donald Trump may come around to thinking, yeah, maybe we do need a democratically legitimated leader. But that's something that's going to take a while to develop.
What are the early steps? If Marco Rubio now, he's got his success, he's Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, he cares. He's got constituents there in Florida that really want these emigres to be able to go back home. They want to be able to invest in this country. They also want a legitimate democracy. I mean, that is what the Venezuelans in the United States want. What should he press President Trump for over the course of the next couple of months?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've learned in many countries around the world is that being an opposition group, even a well-organized one in civil society, a democratic opposition group, does not prepare you for governing. And a lot of the unfortunately, a lot of the failures in the last couple of decades have been, taking power when you're not really ready to do this. So there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done on the part of the Democratic opposition. Who's going to occupy these different ministerial posts? How are they going to structure economic policy? There's a lot of work of that sort. I think that actually we've got a lot of leverage that we could exercise over the existing regime to keep it, if the goal is actually at some point to have democratic elections, they also have to be prepared to accept, let's say international observers, and we got to start talking to them about, what our expectations are if we're not going to hit them a second time or, capture more of their leaders. Beyond that, though, I would say that, as a student of nation building exercises, you cannot plan these things, terribly well in advance, because they always go sideways at some point in ways that you're not expecting. And I think the expectation that you can plan these things is a danger. You have to be much more improvisational as we go along. So we'll see. This administration does not give me a lot of confidence that they know what they're doing, but for the sake of the Venezuelan people, I hope they actually can see a way through this.